How are y'all doing? Okay, Friday before a 3-day weekend. Y'all know there's a 3-day weekend? Yes. All right. So, yesterday we learned about hypothesis and conclusion. So, let's do that again. I've made up a random sentence. If they are the Cowboys and they are America's team, doesn't matter if you like it or if it's true or false. The thing is, can you identify what's the hypothesis and what's the conclusion? Does everyone remember the hypothesis is after the if, right? And then the conclusion is after the then, right? So if I'm going to type this out, write this out, whatever, okay? So if they are the Cowboys, that would be my hypothesis. Then they are America's team. That would be my conclusion. We definitely talked about this yesterday. There's two parts of a conditional. After the if, hypothesis. After the then, conclusion. Headphones, please. Yeah.
You better not call this latest.
I mean, I can write it. It's just less legible.
Yes, but why? What is the?
Did you write it down or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Why don't you
Right.
It's less legible.
Right. You want me to write the whole thing? You want me to write the whole thing? Okay. Any questions on this? Do you have 5 days of warm-ups? If you miss a day, it's okay. Just put absent. It's like a freebie. It is what it is, okay? Don't leave it blank. That's how you lose points. Like Mr. Schneider said, that first little blue sentence, or if y'all are not writing this down, you're losing 5 points a day. Don't lose easy points. Get easy points, okay? All right. Pass it to the front. Make sure your name's on it first, and then pass it to the front, and then we're going to do some notes.
No. Thank you for
Yes, sir.
really going to you actually know. They're gonna have something.
All right.
Accurate.
Here we go. Like Thursday. You know, gotta come to school. All right, folks. Here it is. First things first, we got to know what a counterexample is. Okay? So, a counterexample is an example. Let me put it. One example that proves a conditional false or disproves a conditional, whatever. Disproves a conditional. Okay. What did I just give y'all?
Nothing.
That's what.
I said you were perfectly fine.
All right. Thank you. Did I use this? Using my mind. Losing my brain, losing my mind.
Are you losing your mind, sir?
Yeah. I meant to do it, but I didn't do it. All right. Sorry. Now that you have the notes, here we go. A counterexample is one example that disproves a conditional statement. Okay, we'll go with that. So, you need a pencil? There's a lot of writing. It's gonna seem like an English class today, but we gotta. What's up? What? Hmm? Should be two-sided. All right. Sorry about that. Battery. Well, now, the broken ones I need to turn them in and get them bigger.
I'll keep watching this, guys.
All right. So, a counterexample. So if I said something, if I made a conditional statement, if you're in this class, then you are wearing a black shirt. You know, hey, cool, black shirt. Is that always true? Okay. Well, I'm looking around. That's not true. But I need a counterexample. I need one person with a shirt that's not a black shirt. Okay.
That's racist.
All right. It's not. It's actually just colors. So I see a green shirt. There you go. That is a counterexample. Cool. Counterexample is just one example. It's not every example. It's just one counterexample that proves a statement false. That's it. Does everyone understand what a counterexample is? Okay. You're going to see it on your next test. You're going to see it in geometry. You just got to know when I make a statement, there cannot be any counterexamples. Otherwise, it's false. Okay. Now, let's look at these examples. If a figure is a square, then it has four sides. Is that always true? Does every square have four sides?
It's up if it's a rectangle, but maybe.
So yes, it is true. Every single square you could ever imagine has four sides. Otherwise, it would not be a square, correct? So this is true. Go ahead and just put true. Okay. True.
Wait, what is it? Wait, is it this?
Yeah, it has one parallel pair.
I don't think a trapezoid is a square.
Okay, well, let's. Number two. If a figure has four sides, then it's a square. True or false? False. If it's false, can you give me a counterexample of a four-sided figure that is not a square? A trapezoid. Okay, now if you're not familiar with what a trapezoid looks like, we're going to get into this later in the year. Okay, but a trapezoid has two parallel sides and then two sides that are not necessarily parallel. Okay, so this is an example of a trapezoid. You don't have to because we're gonna write it. Okay, but if a figure has four sides, then it is a square. That's not always true. False. Why? Because trapezoids exist. Okay. So you're saying anytime you say false, you got to follow it up with a specific example. And there's my specific example. And if you want to, you can even draw it. Okay. Now, number three, two different lines intersect. If two lines intersect, then they are perpendicular. Can you think of an example in which two lines intersect and they are not perpendicular? So first of all, what is perpendicular? We did this last Monday on the notes. That's parallel. So parallel don't intersect, but perpendicular do. Specifically 90-degree angle, right? So here's the question. Can lines intersect and they not be perpendicular? So we want to just draw the picture. Okay? Can you draw a picture of two lines crossing not at 90 degrees? Yes. All right. So let's do that. We're going to call this one true or cap. Am I right? All right. So we're going to write false. And then go ahead and draw yourself two lines. That are not 90 degrees, but they do cross. Okay? So hopefully that doesn't look like 90 degrees to y'all. That's not perpendicular. Okay? So false. Not all intersecting lines are perpendicular because here's an example. Okay? So does everyone understand counterexample is specific? You are disproving a statement with one counterexample. That's it. Now, this should look familiar right here because this is literally what we did yesterday. I just copied and pasted it. I mean, there it is as a reminder. So what do we need to be reminded of? If-then statements are called conditional, right? And the letters we use are P, arrow, Q, okay? So I made a prop today. I told y'all I'm not cute, but this is as cute as I get, okay? If P, then Q, right? Visualize. Another way to say it is P implies Q. All right. And we know P is the hypothesis and Q is the conclusion, right? Okay, keep that in your mind. Look at number 4 and 5. You want to do something about this sentence, okay? From our warm-up today, you should be able to find the hypothesis and the conclusion, right? So you're going to do that on number 4, and you are going to underline the hypothesis and circle the conclusion, okay? So let's do that. On number 4, where's the hypothesis? It's after what word? After the if. So hypothesis is after the if. Go ahead and underline. 2 lines are parallel. After if is the hypothesis. Okay? And then conclusion is after the then. They never intersect. It's pretty easy, right? But before you do number 5, okay, number 5. A lot of people get this wrong every year because they're not listening at this exact point in the notes. Is everyone listening at this exact point in the notes? Okay. Look at number 5. Where is the if? Okay. The if is in the middle, so this is kind of a switch to order. Okay. If and after the if, that's what you want to underline, right? The hypothesis is after the if, and sometimes we say things switched around, like in normal English, right? I could say, if it's second period, then I'm in Mr. G's class. Or I could say, I'm in Mr. G's class if it's second period. They mean the same thing, right? Like in general, that's how we talk. Sometimes we move around our words. It's okay. But if you move things around, you got to underline in the right spot. So that means your conclusion is now lines are perpendicular. That's the conclusion if they intersect at 90-degree angles. Okay, done with that. Now, I got to teach you something before I teach you something, okay? This vocab right here is like something we're going to do later, but I'm going to tell you now and tell you later, I guess. But look at this picture right here. This is called a linear pair. It's a pair, meaning 2 angles, that make a line, linear pair, okay? And the word for making a straight line of 180 degrees is this word supplementary. These are all words we're going to actually get to later, but they're part of the notes today. Sorry, okay? But just know that this is a linear pair, and here's my question. Is this true? If 2 angles form a linear pair, just like this, then they are supplementary, which means making a straight line of 180 degrees. That's true. True. If they're a linear pair like this, yes, they are supplementary. It's baked into the definition, okay? Now, the way I printed this makes me mad because I messed up, okay? This sentence at the bottom is supposed to be on the next page, okay? So what I want you to do is rewrite this sentence on the next page. If 2 angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. Write that up here at the top. This is our conditional. If 2 angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. What? Yeah, you're gonna have to write a lot on this page and on the assignment. I did. Sorry, there we go. Okay. So again, the conditional. If 2 angles form a linear pair, then they're supplementary. Okay. All right, let's learn some new words. Okay, the first one is convert. All right. First grade didn't have it. Anything of y'all. Sorry. All right. So when you hear the word convert, what do you think of? A brand of shoes, right? And other things, right? Back in my day, when I was your age, I wore Chuck Taylor's Converse All Stars. I was cool once, back in the day. Anyways, what? Was I a what? Oh, was I? I don't know about was.
Did you pull the lady?
I can answer that when I'm not recording my lesson. No. All right, so Converse. Now, when you think of Converse, you can think of shoes. And what do you do when you got some brand new Converse? You put them on your feet, and hopefully you tie those up. Okay. Now, I know some people don't. They just let them be untied. It's all right though. It's fine. But imagine you want to tie your shoes. What are you gonna do with those laces? You're gonna do this. Watch. Okay. Step one, you got to cross them over. Okay. So imagine when you think of Converse, you think of shoes, you think of crossing them over. All you do with the Converse is switch the order. Okay. So go ahead and like write that as your little like reminder to yourself that whenever I think of the word Converse, all I do is switch P and Q. You're switching the hypothesis and conclusion. Okay. Now I know. Look over here, please. Yo. Hey. So I know you're not holding these papers like I am, but imagine you have P and Q. You're gonna imagine Converse, switcheroo, tie the shoe. Okay. So we're gonna take that top sentence and we gotta do the switcheroo. Okay. We gotta switch P and switch Q. So what would that look like? If two angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. If I switch that order, what would the sentence be? If right. So at the top, hopefully you wrote that sentence. Go ahead and put like a P right here and put a Q right here, just so we know what we're talking about. Okay. The hypothesis is first, the conclusion is second. So I'm asking you to take that sentence and literally switch it around. So what would the switch version be? Sorry, start over. If they are supplementary, then two angles form a linear pair. All you do is switch. That's called a converse, right? So we're gonna write that down, okay? Head up, please. This is new stuff. I need you locked in over here. So if two angles are supplementary, then they are a linear pair. Okay. I know I like messed with some of the order in the grammar, but like the gist of it is switched, right?
When does this unit?
Never. I
The other ones lasted like 2 or 3 days.
unit?
Yeah.
We're still in the first unit.
No, like
Other classes or what?
yeah, they look like for example, we went from
Well, this is still part of unit one. This is like review, and then now unit one. It's a long unit, not gonna lie. Got to write. It's part of our swirl. Now, is this true? If you have supplementary angles, by the way, do y'all know supplementary means they add up to 180? Can you think of supplementary angles that are not a linear pair? Okay. Now I know this we haven't really gone over this, so I'm going to show you a counterexample here. Okay. So imagine I have two angles, right? Let's say I have 30 degrees, and then I got another angle over here that's 150 degrees. Okay. Here's my question: do these two add up to 180? Yes. So that means they are supplementary. But here's the question: are they a linear pair? And the answer is no. Linear pairs have to be touching. So if you have two angles that add up to 180 and they're not touching, that would be a counterexample. False. Okay, we're going to get into more of the details of this later, but angles that add up to 180 that are not adjacent are a counterexample. Okay, now, next one is inverse. If I have P, then Q, inverse, what does that word sound like? Just in general, inverse sounds like you do what with something?
universe.
What's that? You need another word.
Inter?
Let's say you have some reversible jerseys, and then you wanted to invert it. You would do what?
No, sorry, no, sorry.
Different, and it's close. This is like the most important part of the note, so you make that call. I would rather you be here. Okay, let's say I have a shirt, okay, and I want to invert my shirt. What would I do to it? Flip it inside out. Okay, so it's basically opposite. The word I'm fishing for is opposite, okay? Something is opposite if it's inverted, right? That makes sense, right? What's the inverse of Mr. G? Not Mr. G. You know? What's the inverse of winning? Losing. Okay, you get the idea. It's opposite. Now, what you do with an inverse is you keep the same order, P and Q, but do you see these little squiggles here? We're gonna learn a new word here, hopefully. Maybe you already know this word. Y'all know about negation? Negation. I'm spelling it wrong. Negation. Doesn't that sound like the word negative? It's like negative, negation.
Yeah.
If you negate something, that makes it opposite, and you use a squiggly line. Okay? Technically, that's called a tilde or something like that. Yeah, on your keyboard, if you look next to the number 1, it's on your keyboard. It's a tilde, a squiggle. Okay? So, when you negate something, you make it opposite. And basically, the only way to negate something, or the easiest way, is to use the word not. Okay? So to inverse, negation, opposite, I'm going to use the word not. So how do I find the inverse of this sentence? If two angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. How do I negate two angles form a linear pair? Instead of saying that they do form a linear pair, they would not form a linear pair. And then I also have to do the opposite of they are supplementary. What's the negation or the opposite of they are supplementary? They are not supplementary. So let me make this very easy. To do an inverse, all you're going to do is say not this and not this. Okay? So remember yesterday, my warm-up, if I'm Mr. G, then I'm cool. What's the inverse of Mr. G? Not Mr. G. What's the inverse of cool? Not cool. Okay? So all you're doing is saying not to make it opposite. So again, same order, opposite. Okay? Just make it opposite. Okay? So again, we're just going to keep same order, but we're going to add not. So here we go. If two angles are, all right, angles do not form a linear pair, then they are not supplementary. Trying to fit it in here, sorry. Bro.
So I don't know.
Eh? What?
So she
Actually, hold on. Just make sure you write this down, please. Please be on task. I'm going to show you the same example over here. Lines that are not a linear pair, angles that are not a linear pair. Here's an example. Are these not supplementary? No, these are supplementary, okay? The inverse is probably the hardest one to determine if it's true or false because we get confused with all the opposites here. But this is also a counterexample to this statement. These separate angles that add up to 180, they're not a linear pair, but they are supplementary, okay? Okay, now, so far we've done two things. We've switched the order, we've made them opposite. The only thing left to do is to do both, okay? So if you can switch and you can opposite, you can do both switch and opposite, okay? So, all right, I know this looks like a viral dance, right? All right, contrapositive, that longer multisyllabic word there is when you do both steps. You're going to take that hypothesis, put it at the end, and make it opposite. You're going to take that conclusion, put it at the beginning, make it opposite, okay? So let me show you what I mean. Let's take, again, stay with me. All right, zone in, ready? If I'm Mr. G, then I'm cool, okay? Whether it's true or false, doesn't matter, okay? If I'm Mr. G, then I'm cool. Take it, switch it, and make it opposite. Okay, so that's not an if-then statement. So if I'm Mr. G, the G goes to the end, the cool comes to the beginning, and it becomes not cool, right? So the contrapositive is if I'm not cool, then I'm not Mr. G. Okay. All right. Well, anyways, let's do it with this sentence over here. Okay. I don't want to lose y'all, but I know this is a lot. So let's get this. For contrapositive, you're gonna do both switch and negate. You switch the order and you make them negated. Negate means opposite or not. Good question. All right, ready? Let's write this sentence for contrapositive. Okay. So if two angles form a linear pair, then they're supplementary. You switch the order, make it opposite. If two angles are not supplementary, y'all see how supplementary went to the front and became opposite? Then they are not a linear pair. So again, I took supplementary, put a not, and moved it to the front. Not supplementary. I took linear pair, moved it to the back, made it opposite with a not. This one takes both steps, switch and negate. Okay. Sorry. Now this one is true. If it's not going to add up to 180, then it definitely cannot be a linear pair because all linear pairs add up to 180. Okay? You don't have a counterexample if it's true, it's just true. Okay. Now, last but not least, biconditional. Okay. I think we know what the prefix bi entails. It's two. Okay. And it's a two-way street. When you have a biconditional, you have a conditional and a converse, which is the opposite way, and they're both true. Okay. So can you think of a statement that's true no matter which way you say it? Okay. I'll give you an example. If a shape has three sides, then it's a triangle. True. And switch it around. If it's a triangle, then it has three sides. That's also true, right? If it's true both ways, you can write it as a biconditional. Okay, so go and write the word biconditional here. Biconditional. And this is very important. Go ahead and underline this right here. For a biconditional, you're going to use if and only if. No if, no then, only if and only if in the middle. So, does anyone still need the top part? All right, check it out. We're almost done. What you're going to do is take this if-then conditional statement and turn it into a biconditional. So how do I do that? I have to use if and only if in the middle. Okay? So watch me do this. Ready? Number one, cross out if, cross out then. Those got to go away. And what you're going to write is an angle is acute if and only if it measures less than 90. This is the most important piece for a biconditional. If and only if. Okay. Same thing on the last one. Get rid of the if, get rid of the then. Today is Thursday. If and only if tomorrow is Friday. Oops. My goodness, sorry. Hold on. Does everyone see what I'm talking about? If and only if goes in the middle. There's no then. It doesn't begin with if. That is a biconditional statement. Okay? Now, I am going to give you an assignment, but you will have a 3-day weekend and even class time on Monday to work on this. I know it's a lot of writing, but if you just don't do it, it's going to pile up. I don't want you to pile it up for later, okay? So make sure you have finished the notes, start working on this, or missing work, okay?